What's up, everybody? We're going to talk about lagging body parts. So, lagging body parts is exactly what it sounds like. It's just like maybe you have biceps that don't seem to be developing as quickly as your triceps, or maybe your back isn't developing very much, but your biceps keep on taking on all the brunt of the weight. So, everything around it seems to be improving at a faster rate than a certain muscle group, and it could be an aggravating experience. Now, when it comes to training design, you want to keep an attentive eye on things. I recommend hitting all your mandatory bodybuilding poses and taking pictures of them once a week. Same lighting, same spot, same everything. That way you're able to objectively judge the direction that things are going in over a period of time. It also is very important too, like tracking your weight. So if your weight is steadily increasing and your physique is visually improving, that's a good indicator. Or if your physique's improving but your body weight's staying the same, that's also a good indicator. It means that you're getting leaner while putting on more muscle, which you can do that, but you cannot do that forever. So you got all this stuff in mind. Now, what do you do about the lagging body part? Well, people have lots of different approaches. Some people actually scale back the volume on it. The first thing, obviously, you want to look at is like your form, because maybe like a good thing is if your back is not developing very much and your biceps seem to be taking on the load when you're doing pull downs, rows, and all that, you're probably pulling with your hands and your forearms instead of pulling from your elbows. So like you literally hook your hands into the bar, for example, and then you pretend your hands don't exist from that point, and the only thing moving the weight is your elbows. Just visualizing it that way, you're able to get better back stimulation for most people. But you know, that example too, like I never really struggled with back movements, but definitely that is a big one for people. And the issue with not changing things around is that your good parts are going to continue to get better and your bad parts are going to either stay the same or only slightly improve. So it's going to increase the disparity over time. Like another big one people have is like maybe they have like really developed delts, you know, their shoulders, but their chest doesn't seem to be growing very much. And it's important to tackle these things at the appropriate stage of the game, because if you keep going on the same pattern forever, you're eventually going to overdevelop your delt so much that it's going to be damn near impossible for you to single out your chest when you're doing pressing movements and things of that nature. So that's why it's important. Like, it's all right to have the disparity, but if you create too much of a gap, it's going to be too hard to fill. And that does happen with people. I mean, also too, when we're building the physique we want, right? Like, you don't have to build the most balanced physique if you're not competing. Like, you could build whatever kind of physique you want, and if you like it the way it is, then keep doing it that way. There's nothing wrong with that. But you know, a lot of people too, like, they're making great progress, but they're not doing the things I suggested, like keeping track of their weight and pictures. So now they start looking online and they start hearing all different kinds of methodologies from different individuals, and now they start fucking with something they didn't need to. Their training was fine, they were continuing to progress, and then they changed things for no reason. And that's another great way people can spoil their own progress. If you're doing something that someone else finds incorrect, but you have the data for you to objectively see that you're steadily improving, don't change anything. You don't need to. You're improving. Why would you change that? Don't get into the mindset where you're like, oh, well, I'm going to improve even more, so if I do things completely different. Keep doing things the way that work until they don't work, because the same thing's not going to work forever. If you keep that in mind, you're going to be fine. It really sucks too, because when, you know, the internet's prospered so much, everyone's like, oh, this is really going to help. It's going to help chop down the confusion for people, and they're going to be better, well-rounded intellectually and all that. The opposite has happened. You have so many differing viewpoints because there's more than one way to skin a cat. Then now everyone's in a giant fight over the 20% of things they don't agree on instead of the 80% of the things that they do. And that's where you get a huge problem with most subjects. And especially weightlifting too. Like, some people do an approach where they do low volume, high intensity. They're not doing that many working sets. They're not doing that many reps. They're training to failure every set. They're not doing that much. Then you got other people that are volume guys. They're doing a lot of sets, a lot of reps. The weights might not be as much because of the volume they're doing. Both people, you've seen people on both sides of the spectrum have amazing physiques. And then it really comes down to personal preference too. Like, which way do you, I should back up. I recommend everyone should expose themselves to a variety of different training styles and just find one that you not only enjoy but works for you. Works for you would be you feel the exercise is great, you're exhausting the muscle all the way, and you're really emphasizing the important things that matter, like the form, the contractions, the stretches under tension, all of those factors. If you're doing that to the best of your ability, you enjoy doing it, train that way. That's fine. But if you're training in a style that someone said is more effective, but you're not feeling it very well, it doesn't feel suitable for you mentally, and things just aren't clicking right, you're not gonna, I don't care if it's the best training plan in the world for someone else, you're not gonna make progress that way. It's very individualized in that regard, and people don't like to admit that. I mean, there's some things too, like there's things that are givens. Like the givens are, you need to eat a lot of protein, you got to maximize calorie intake when you're gaining weight, things like that we all agree on. But then we get into training styles and stuff like that, everyone starts getting ready to fight each other over what's the best. The best is whatever you enjoy the most, that you progress doing. It's as simple as that. When you look at it that way, just do it. Just do it. Just do it. I see way too many people getting into pissing matches online over all this stuff, and it doesn't really matter that much, because they're still going to train the way they train, and the people that disagree with them are still going to train the way they do. And there's people on both sides that have awesome physiques. We've seen all kinds of people like that. Jay Cutler did high volume. He was a Mr. Olympia. Someone like Dexter Jackson was a bit of a higher volume guy too, a Mr. Olympia. Then you got Ronnie Coleman, who was like almost doing powerlifting style bodybuilding training, and again, a Mr. Olympia. Like, it doesn't, there's people at the highest level you could possibly get to that have maximized those completely polar opposite approaches to it. The only thing I would say though is, like, just find what works, stick to it, and if you do need to change things, I recommend filming yourself. Filming yourself is going to be huge for you. When you're filming yourself, and you got to also realize it might not be from the angle that's most appealing to post on Instagram. You might need to film yourself from the complete side view of yourself doing a deadlift or something, just so you can see your back angle. But you want to film yourself from all those vantage points so you could see, like, well, where's my form not looking great? And then it gives you a better idea of where to improve it. And a lot of people too, it's just a simple little fix. Like, a lot of people, they don't think about just like buckling their elbows inward when they do a row, and they're just kind of like pulling with their elbows flared out a little bit, and just making that slight change of a couple inches with their elbows completely changes their ability to actually utilize their lats. It really comes down to like small stuff like that. So if you're able to be cognizant of your own body's movements while you're training, and then you also have the film to back it up, and you do all these things, the data is always your friend. The data is yourself, your weight, your body over time. All these things are completely advantageous to you progressing as much as you possibly can. A lot of people don't even utilize that. Like, I have a coworker that I gave him a diet plan, and he's lost like 40 pounds now, and he's like, I still feel fat as fuck. I don't really see much of a change, and he hasn't been taking pictures. He feels like a bit embarrassed taking pictures of himself, like shirtless and stuff, because obviously, like, some people get to a point where they don't like the way they look without clothes on. I mean, I was a fat kid. Like, I was a really fat kid. Believe me, I understand it, but you want to take those things for yourself. You don't have to take them and share them with anyone. If you have a coach, obviously share it with them. They're the ones that are going to give you the best advice. You obviously hired them because you trust them. But you want to take these things so you have the data for yourself, because when you're living in your own skin every day, you're not going to be able to see the changes like everyone else is, because anyone else who looks at this guy is like, holy shit, he's made a drastic change in himself, but he's not seeing it himself because it's been every minute, every day, he's just been living in his own skin and seeing himself. It happens to all of us. There's no one out there this does not happen to. Even when I'm judging myself, I'm constantly looking at imperfections. I'll see myself in the mirror, I'm looking at what is not improved enough, what needs to get better, and I always think things look subpar. But then I can look at a picture of myself 6 months ago, and I could be like, damn, I actually look pretty decent there. But I for sure as hell didn't think it the moment I took the picture, or even when I was seeing myself. It's just part of the game. If you're able to just continue to create the data, and then you can line those pictures up side by side, and when you do that over time, you're like, oh my god, I look completely different than 3 months ago. I didn't even realize that. And when you're able to do that, like, that's a good indicator too, like, hey, I'm doing something right. There's always a big question in our minds: are we doing the right thing? Are we doing things the best we can? You know, lazy people do a little work and think they should be winning, but winners do all the work in the world and they still wonder if they're being lazy. So there's a lot of us out there that we're going to bed wondering if we did everything we could have. And when you get the reassurance through looking back at old pictures compared to now, and it gives you that confidence in yourself where you understand, okay, I am doing something right, I am changing, I am improving. It just might not feel like it in the day-to-day. And stuff like that is paramount to your success in this. It's a long-term thing. I know, like, a lot of guys go in the gym, they're like, I'm gonna max out every fucking day, I'm gonna load up the bar, I'm gonna do 2 reps, I need everyone to know I'm strong, and they hurt themselves, and then they either stop going to the gym or they end up looking like crap because they're so preoccupied with their own ego that they're not even worried about the long-term success of this. It's not about how much weight you lift the one time. It's about how long you can continue to do this. Do you want to be really strong for 2 years, or do you want to be really strong for a lifetime? Because the answer is obvious, but people sure don't act like it when they're in the moment in the middle of training. And there's nothing wrong with having fun with it either. You know, I've done deadlift singles, but I haven't done them at the expense of my training. I've done them at the end. You're bodybuilding here. You're not powerlifting. Like, don't go max out on deadlifts before a back day and completely ruin your training for the whole day because now you're fatigued out and you haven't even worked your muscles that much. That's something that a lot of people do. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years now, or it's about 15 years, but I've done that before. I've made all these mistakes. Everything I'm talking about is from personal experience. It's not like I'm just judging everyone around me. It's because I see other individuals doing things that I was once doing at a certain point in the game, and I've been able to be reflective, think intrinsically about it, and grow from those approaches to realize there are faults in them and that you could always do things better. And if you could save someone the mistakes of doing those things and potentially hurting themselves along the way, because I have hurt myself a lot of times along this journey that I did not need to, because I was too stubborn to want to take other people's advice. So I understand some people aren't going to do that. You could tell them anything until you're blue in the face, they're not going to listen. They're going to go fucking hurt themselves, and they're only going to acknowledge it well after the fact. And that's all right. But there is that one person out there that you could give the advice to, that they're actually going to take it and they're going to just skyrocket their progress far more than I've been able to do in the same time frame because of my own ignorance. And that's why I really talk from a lot of these viewpoints, because at some point I was the ignorant kid. At some point I was the know-it-all. At some point I was the guy 1 rep maxing stuff and ruining his day of training for no other reason than stroking my own ego. I have been at all these different points and I've grown past them. And the real progress didn't come until I was able to drop my ego and focus on the things that matter, not the things that I thought mattered.